Alan Moffat's death has left Australia heartbroken, and the shock surrounding his passing is still rippling through the motorsport world. Even for fans who knew about his battle with Alzheimer's disease, the final confirmation of his death at 86 felt like a moment that stopped time. It was as if an era had suddenly closed, leaving everyone struggling to process the loss of a man who shaped racing history across 5 decades to the general public. Alan Moffat was a sporting legend. To motorsport fans, he was much more than that. He was the heartbeat of Australian racing culture. His name carried weight, pride, and nostalgia. It took people back to the days when racing was raw and unpredictable, when drivers relied on courage, instinct, and skill more than advanced technology. Moffat was the kind of competitor who made every race feel like an event, every victory feel like history in the making. Born in Canada, but embraced wholeheartedly by Australia, Moffat became the face of touring car racing during the 1970s and 1980s. His record alone tells the story of a once-in-a-generation talent for Australian touring car championships in 1973, 1976, 1977, and 1983. For Bathurst 1000. Victories in 1970, 1971, 1973, and 1977. But numbers only show the surface. Anyone who watched him race would tell you that Moffat had something deeper and unmatched intensity. A burning hunger to win, and a fearless competitive spirit that pushed everyone around him to their limits. His 1977 Bathurst victory is still spoken of with a sense of awe. Fans who watched it live say it felt like witnessing a piece of national history. Moffat and teammate Colin Bond drove side by side across the finish line in a perfect 1-2 formation. It wasn't just a win, it was a statement of dominance. A moment that defined the Moffat era. A moment that motorsport fans still replay, still talk about, still proudly describe to younger generations. Moffat's rivalry with Peter Brock remains one of the greatest sporting rivalries Australia has ever seen. Ford versus Holden, Moffat versus Brock. The battles between the two drivers split fans into passionate camps, created unforgettable storylines, and turned races into legendary showdowns. Yet behind the scenes, the rivalry was balanced by genuine friendship. Away from the cameras, the two respected each other deeply. Their bond proved that you could be fierce competitors on the track, but still share admiration and camaraderie. Once the helmets came off, beyond his wins, Alan Moffat was known as one of the most professional drivers of his time. He introduced a level of discipline, preparation, and business understanding that was rare in the sport's early decades. Before sponsorships became the backbone of racing, Moffat understood their value. Before teams evolved into well-structured organizations, Moffat was already building his operation with precision and long-term vision. Many people credit him with helping modernize Australian motorsport, turning it into a serious and respected global industry. So when the news broke that Alan Moffat had passed away, reactions poured in instantly. Fans spoke about losing not just a driver, but a hero, someone they grew up watching, cheering for, and admiring. Former racers shared heartfelt memories of Moffat's guidance, mentorship, and quiet encouragement. Engineers and mechanics talked about how he treated them with respect and expected excellence because he believed in the power of teamwork. Journalists recalled interviews where Moffat's intelligence and honesty stood out, even during tough times. Supercars chief executive James Warburton described Moffat as a pioneer, a champion, and an icon, a tribute that resonated deeply. He spoke about how Moffat's influence shaped the modern era of racing, how his rivalry with Brock defined a generation, and how his leadership both on and off the track changed the sport forever. The words were emotional and sincere, capturing the spirit of a man whose achievements went far beyond the racetrack. The Moffat family released a heartbreaking statement, calling him one of Australia's greatest sporting legends. They said he died peacefully, surrounded by loved ones, after a long fight with Alzheimer's disease. Their message reminded everyone that behind the fame and records was a man who loved deeply and was deeply loved. A father, a grandfather, a friend, someone who balanced fierce competitiveness with kindness and humility. For his sons James and Andrew, the loss is immeasurable. James, who followed his father into professional racing, has inherited not only Moffat's passion, but also the enormous respect fans had for his father. Messages from around the world have been pouring in to support the family, showing just how far Alan Moffat's impact reached in the days since his passing. Fans have been revisiting old footage of his greatest victories. They're sharing photos, posting memories, and writing messages of devotion and gratitude. Many say they feel like they've lost a part of their childhood. Others say that Moffat was the reason they fell in love with cars, racing, and the thrill of competition. His career didn't just entertain people, it shaped their identity, their passion, and their connection to Australian culture. Alan Moffat retired from professional racing in 1989, but he never truly stepped away from the sport. He continued entering cars in Bathurst until 1996, always pushing for excellence. Later, he served as a commentator during the V8 era, bringing his deep racing knowledge to television audiences. He was also a loyal ambassador for Ford, the brand with which he built much of his legacy. People still remember seeing him at eventspolish.com and carrying the aura of someone who had nothing to prove because he had already proven everything. His struggle with Alzheimer's became public in later years, and Moffat faced it with courage. He supported Dementia Australia and worked to raise awareness about the disease. The Alan Moffat Foundation continues this mission, ensuring that his legacy of advocacy remains just as strong as his legacy of racing. Even as tributes rise across the nation, there is an important detail fans should know. Although public honors and memorials are already being planned, his official funeral and burial have not yet taken place. The family will share arrangements when they are ready, and they have requested privacy during this deeply emotional time. Supercars has announced that they will honor Moffat at the upcoming Adelaide Grand Final. The ceremony is expected to be powerful and emotional, likely featuring footage of his greatest races, interviews, and tributes from fellow legends. It will be a moment the entire motorsport world comes together to celebrate him, not with tears alone, but with pride for everything he accomplished. Alan Moffat's passing feels like the end of an era because, in many ways, he was the last of a generation that defined the raw heart of Australian motorsport. Before racing became driven by data engineering teams and massive commercial interests, drivers like Moffat built the sport with their courage, instincts, and sheer determination. He wasn't just fast, he was fierce. He wasn't just a champion, he was an architect of modern racing culture. He wasn't just admired, he was adored. The shock surrounding his death comes from one simple truth: legends feel immortal until the world loses them. Alan Moffat's engines may be silent now, but the echoes of his greatness will continue to roar across racetracks, his documentaries, history books, and the memories of fans who will never forget what he gave to Australia.